has anybody had two phases to their career in Real Madrid more so than Isco, where he was left for dead, and then Zidane came in, and then he was playing. And then he was left for dead again, and then he's back playing. And if you have that from 3 or 4 players in Real Madrid, that kind of talent rises to a different level entirely. And that's why it makes Real Madrid, when you project as to what the future of La Liga is going to be, of course it's going to be Real Madrid or Barcelona. But right now, you feel like the inside track is Real Madrid.
You mentioned the touches for Isco, but I got the feeling it was a little bit of a training game.
Yeah.
Feel about it.
Yeah.
And in some sense, taking it to Saudi Arabia or another country, but it's Saudi Arabia, it sort of took the intensity away from it. It felt like it's a trip. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For Valencia, but even for Real Madrid, and it's a trip with a game involved rather than a semi-final. And I kind of got the feeling and that allowed Real Madrid just to dominate the game. And I think Valencia were all right now and again, but I just feel taking the games to these places, you lose the intensity of having the game on home soil where it kind of means more. It's almost like, well, we're over here and we're playing this little game in Saudi Arabia because that's what we're doing. And it's a bit of a trip.
Yeah.
And if we win, we win. I mean, obviously for Real Madrid and Barcelona, the pressure is more. But for the other teams, I think it's taken the edge off it.
Sid, we've come a long way, though, haven't we, from that pre-season shellacking that Real Madrid received from Atleti. There was talk on the show, I know, we talked about the future of Zinedine Zidane and how he could be gone before Christmas. He must be smiling to himself because he's shown a lot of his critics wrong, hasn't he, over the last few weeks, proving that he's not just a manager who'll just pat you on the back.
Yeah, I mean, he must be smiling to himself, not least because he always seems to be smiling. That's been part of his ability over the last 4 years, because it was 4 years ago, just a few days ago that he took over. I mean, how much he's done in 4 years. Won 3 Champions Leagues, gone away, come back, and now seems to have somehow put the team back together. Because, of course, he came back and he had those last 12 games of last season where it was just everyone waiting for the end. And it felt like that could have actually really burnt him. And he's come through it. And as you say, there was the defeat against Atletico in the summer. There was a doubtful start to the season. And you know what? I think the smile, it doesn't feel like he's driven by what people say, but it does feel like he's driven by a competitiveness. I think more than anything else, to prove to himself and to prove to his players that he can do it differently. And I think one of the most interesting things about this year is that it feels like their priorities have been turned on their head at Real Madrid. Zidane has been consistent in talking about the league, consistent in talking about this is what proves that we are the best, not the Champions League. And, you know, it is not, it's no fantasy to say that the president of the club would much rather win the Champions League, to the extent that he told one of his former managers, oh, don't worry about the league, we've got to win the Champions League. And yet Zidane has shifted that, and he's challenged the storyline from within the club. And I think we're seeing that now in the competitiveness of the players, the seriousness of them. And to go back to the Getafe game at the weekend again, and I think this is a microcosm of their season. They didn't play well with the ball. They weren't good, but they scored 3 goals. But what they were was incredibly competitive up against a really tough, really aggressive, occasionally nasty team. And said, OK, we're going to play like this, are we? We'll play. Last year, they wouldn't have done.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.